Willkommen in der Kolonie, Baby!
Welcome back, friends! Usually I don't talk about one single picture that may have been published by Alchemia. But today is a little bit different because a few days ago we got the Gothic cover art. I think it's the finalized version. And that was basically a gift from the developers to us. A gift for the birthday of Gothic. And today we're going to have a look at it and analyze it a little bit. So with that out of the way, let's begin. But before we begin, we are going to start with the original cover art. So the original is very, very simple. It is playing with silhouettes and shadows more than with details. Right in the middle we can see the four friends, or the, well, Dungeons and Dragons archetypes. And those are the warrior, the mage, the psionic, and the thief/archer. The armies on the side, they all seem to be humans, and everyone is carrying a spear, so it's a very basic imagery. But still, I really love these old school type covers, which are very cryptic and vague, and with the sleeper mask. Yeah, it evokes a very mystical and martial feeling, which I very much love. But that's actually it with the original cover. So let's jump in. And first and foremost, we are going to talk about the four friends, the centerpiece of the cover art. Alright, let's start with our friend and mentor, Diego. His armor seems to be changed. The earliest screenshot shows him wearing a shadow armor that has steel plates on his shoulders, and the vest was more black in color. The new armor is more reddish, which makes it more in line with the original, and it seems to lack the additional protection that we saw earlier. I think it is possible that the first screenshot showed him wearing the heavy shadow armor, but here he's wearing the light version with a few minor changes. For example, now it has longer trousers, which obviously is great. So overall, I am very satisfied with Diego. I really like it. One small nitpicky thing, he is really drawing his bow very hard, and the bow should bend a little when you draw the string, but that is just a very, very minor thing, a very minor complaint. Now let's have a look at Milton. And generally, I gotta say, I love it. He still has his young appearance, his iconic coil of hair in his face, and his face in general is not what I expected, but I very much like it. Yeah, I know, all the memes aside, you know, Todd Howard and all that, but I really do enjoy it. Talking about the robe, there is a big amount of detail to go through. Although it got changed quite a lot, the original robe was composed of two main parts, the robe itself and the black stole worn above. The new stole is present, it is black, it seems to be out of leather, although it is not as thick, which I very much like, because the fire mages, and all the mages for that matter, shouldn't have such a big frame or silhouette. They should be more slender in a way. There is way more detail, as I said, with the boots being clearly visible in this version, and it kinda looks more like a battle mage than the garment of a priest of fire, but that doesn't bother me as much. It's really, really cool. And as you can see, there is still these fire ornaments on his sleeves and on the belt buckle like in the original. It also has a hood, and it has way more layers to it than the old one. As you can see, there is some parts of it flowing in the wind, being kind of detached from the rest, which also is a very nice sight to behold. And here's our boy Lester. So, the first thing that comes to my mind, he's wearing a Templar armor. Lester never was a Templar, and to be honest, I didn't really think of him as a fighter type. He was more of a scholar in my mind, and I talked about it in an earlier video about this, because first, he is good with the gurus, so he was more on the spiritual side of things. He went to the mountain fortress and read quite a lot, all the books in the shelves. And in Gothic 2, he's talking about that once upon a time he had been the apprentice of Constantino, the alchemist of Corinus. So these three things paint a very clear picture in my mind that he is more of a nerdy, well-read guy. And that makes him, in my mind, more of a scholar than a fighter. So in my book, he would join the gurus and not the Templars. But hey, that is that. Another thing is the type of weapon that he's wearing, because Lester's weapon of choice is a mace. And here he is indeed having a sword, a one-handed sword in his hand. And I can kind of see why they did it, because if you have a look at the original art piece, the psionic is indeed having a sword. So there is also the case of his missing face tattoos, which were again very iconic for his appearance in Gothic 1 and Gothic 2. It is part of his identity, and Alchemia thought that, hey, we should change that. I don't know why. The reasons are escaping me, and I think that with a very few little changes to him, maybe giving him the guru armor or the heavy novice armor, which is actually displayed in the original key art, and you can see that by the very big pauldron. That would be a good way to just redesign him a little and to be more in line with the original vision that they had back in the day. And here he is, the big man Gorn. Well, Gorn has a weird silhouette, and it kind of looks that he's wearing baggy pants because his posture is a little strange. I don't know how to explain that. And the biggest complaint of them all, the man should be just a bit more muscular. Although he seems to be the tallest of the four friends, which begs the question, will there be height differences for NPCs? In the original, every human had the same size, but hey, maybe they changed that and Gorn is just a very tall lad. However, I really wish he is going for the proteins a little bit more, and maybe he will be more buffed in the future. I really, really do hope so. His military haircut suits him well, although I don't know about the facial hair. Gorn has a very iconic mustache that kind of goes down to the side, kind of looks like these trucker mustaches that they sometimes wear, and this was just part of him. It was part of his identity, you know, like Lester's face tattoos. But I can't really see through it. There is too much shadow going on. It kind of looks like he has a full beard, but I hope not. I hope he's having the mustache, and that is indeed a very defining little characteristic of him. And of course we see the first piece of armor from the new camp. It's the medium mercenary armor. I think that the right pauldron should be, again, a little bigger, since the one in the original version was massive. It was really, really big. But I have to say, it is a nice armor design in general. It looks makeshift, built with scraps and built out of all sorts of different materials, which I really, really think is very fitting for the new camp, being the, well, scavengers and thieves and bandits who they are. And the last piece, obviously, is his big axe, and I think it's wonderful. It's a double-bladed axe. It's a very massive thing. I think that's just his iconic weapon, so I'm completely fine with it. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the Orcs. This is our second glance at the Orcs from the remake. The first one we had during the playable teaser, and that version, however, looked very generic and not at all like the originals. And, well, not many people liked that design. Too many people disliked them, and that is a reason why they changed it, but they also said it was just, placeholder, more or less, but it is what it is. This, however, is the second and most likely finalized version, and it shows the Orcs with Alchemia's own twists. Well, let's start with the head shape. It is indeed inspired by the original. The skull shape with the heavy brow resembles that of a gorilla, and they seem to have some kind of ridge almost reaching down to their eyes, which is kinda hinted at in the original game. The fangs or tusks are longer and more pointy, but they have no visible fur, while in the original they were covered with hair and also had hair on their heads. In general, they look more grim and brutal, while their predecessors looked, in a weird way, more peaceful, if that makes sense. But I have to say that I really like the noses, which are looking way more animalistic. I was complaining about the goblins a while ago, that their noses seem to be more human-shaped, more human-like, and I'm really glad that they're going with the more animal-like characteristics with the Orcs. There is one more thing that I want to complain about. There is a lot of people saying that they look like Warcraft Orcs, and this, in my opinion, is simply not true. If we have a look at the Warcraft Orcs, they are way bulkier. They have massive muscles covering their whole body. The fangs are usually broader and not as pointy, with very rare exceptions, and their head shape is more human-like. The forehead is more pronounced. In these pictures I showed you, it's a picture from a cinematic from the movie, and from in-game you can see there's clearly differences. And to be honest, if you compare them to Warcraft, you can also compare them to Lord of the Rings and all the other iterations of Orcs throughout all the media. And I think every franchise kind of gives them their own little twist, but they all come from the same basic idea, so you can't expect something completely new, in my opinion. So all in all, I really like their new design, but I think they deserve some more hair to be a little bit more in line with their ancestors of Gothic 1. Now let's have a look at the armor. It looks mighty fine, even though I think the spikes on their pauldrons are a little too long. And comparing it to the original, they were more stubby and short. I just think of, the practicality of it. When you turn your head and you raise your arm or whatever, you impale yourself. But, that's just nitpicking. They also seem to wear more armor pieces, more leather straps, more detail on the armor, which is to be expected. And if you take a look at some of their braces that they wear, or even gloves, I can't really see it really good. They have these claws attached to them. And this is actually an idea they borrowed from the Orc Elites of Gothic 2, which is a very fine addition, actually. Then we take a quick look at their weapons. They really look fine, but they kind of lack the crude character of the original ones. You can see the following weapons. It's the Krush Karok, the hammer, then you have the Krush Agash, the axe with a long blade and 2 attachments to the handle, and a type of axe that can either be Krush Pash or Krush Urok with a shorter blade. I fear a little bit that their shamanistic and tribalistic vibe gets lost, but even though of these very minor complaints that I have, I really, really do enjoy this version of the Orcs. I'm glad that they changed it from the original depiction they had, and maybe some more changes will be coming. Let's hope for it. Now let's talk about the surroundings, what's going on in the very foreground and all that stuff. If we take a look at the left there seems to be a two-handed sword sticking in the ground, and this is actually Kor Angar's sword. It is called Red Wind. But not actually, because the Red Wind, you see, it shares the same model with a two-handed blade that is called the Hero's Edge. So that is that. The other swords left mid and right are possibly the plain old two-hander. The ornamental ring on the crossguard and the lugs or spikes on the blade are a strong indicator for that, although the pommel is a little bit different. Another little criticism that I have is that if you take a look at the wooden poles of those makeshift barricades, some of them seem to be randomly sticking out of solid rock right in the foreground, which is kinda, it's a little strange. I think that was an oversight, but hey, it is what it is. So, what is the conclusion? I think they did a very good job of capturing the original vibe of the cover art from back in the day. And the original and also the new one remind me heavily of that one shot in the intro cinematic of Diablo 1, which actually was one of the inspirations for Gothic as far as I know. And the red and orange background, just like in the cinematic, feels very, very foreboding. I like this imagery a lot. The added detail with the clouds and the large tower of the old camp looming in the background are very nice little details. I love these touches. And yeah, what is there left to say? I really love it. I think that there is a very small, minor changes that you can apply to this version to make it more in line with the original. Lester's robe, make it maybe a heavy novice robe. You can see it even in the original cover art with this huge pauldron at the side. Don't make him a Templar. Give Gorn some more muscles and, all the other things that I mentioned. But I think it's a good enough cover art. It's very nice. Well, thanks for listening. I hope to see you next time. I'm still working on the next project. And by the way, I really, really hate to say this. I never really wanted to start with this, but please like and subscribe, guys. Come on. Tickle the algorithm. Give me some hope. Let's make these videos known in the vast reaches of the internet and show them around to people who are maybe interested in the franchise. Well, thank you guys. See you.